Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and I want to talk about Star Trek Discovery, most specifically to do with a reveal that comes at the end of the season finale, which was really, for my tastes, only having watched it once as of the time of this recording. Still have yet to go back and try to rewatch it. I had a bad time with the finale, but the one saving grace, I guess you could say, for a lot of people was the final shot, and that is spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. The in Discovery version of the 1701 Enterprise. It makes its reveal toward the end of the episode. It's the last thing we see. Apparently Captain Pike is hailing, Discovery, a priority one distress signal or whatever it is. And so we finally get to see the Enterprise. And it is, for all intents and purposes, a hybridization, as I discussed in my, finale review discussion video. It's kind of a hybridization of the motion picture style, the refit style of the 1701 Enterprise. The pylons that, hold up the nacelles look more akin to that. The body of, the secondary hull looks very much akin to that. Of course, it has the saucer and it has the nacelles. The nacelles themselves kind of harken back very closely to, I guess you could say an evolution, a step in the evolution coming off of Star Trek Enterprise, the NX-01 Enterprise, in that it had the blue glowing segments on the internal sides to the nacelles, and, the end caps, the Bussard collectors had a couple little sort of pieces molded just around them a little bit. And overall, the design is pretty cool. I really kind of dig it. A lot of people have said this is kind of what they would have done in modern day if they could have, like if they were, making Star Trek for the first time. It's a visual reboot, it's an update, but it still harkens back to a lot of the classic flavor of the Enterprise. And I've seen some people, blasting off their incredulity over the design of this thing and suggesting that it's somehow abhorrent and it doesn't hold up to the way the Enterprise is supposed to look and all these things. And, yeah, it's not an exact carbon copy. It's not the exact ship as we see it in the 1960s Star Trek series, the original series. But I think it pays it a lot of homage and a lot of love. It's an updated design, but it's still a Constitution class. It's still the Enterprise, the silhouette in most estimations. One of the biggest things, one of the chief things that gets a lot of people unnerved, and this is something going back to, the J.J. Abrams movies, Star Trek 2009, Into Darkness, Star Trek Beyond, and has carried over subsequently to Star Trek Discovery, is the bridge windows that are being included on these Starfleet ships, these Federation vessels. A lot of people, they just like, this isn't how it's supposed to look. This isn't the way it's supposed to be, and yada, yada, yada. And because canon means cannot change anything to a lot of people, they're up in arms about, oh, the Enterprise, it flew in at the end and there was that window! There was that damn window! Not supposed to have a window! Okay. So, I did a video prior to Star Trek Discovery's beginning to air, where I had pulled out the Art of Star Trek hardcover book that I have, and I had made some allusions to the fact that stylistically, in the form and function of the design of the sets and the ships of Star Trek Discovery, which we haven't really seen a lot of the ships up to that point, but some set photos and things like that were leaking of the Shenzhou's transporter room, and I made allusions calling back to some of the early concept designs that were going to be implanted into Star Trek Phase 2 and other projects that had followed on from the cancellation of the original series. So anyway, I've never heard of this until a couple of months ago, but apparently there was a DVD collective release called the Roddenberry Vault, the original series. And it seems to be a lot of footage and imagery and interviews with surviving actors and producers, as well as people who have been working in Star Trek and have been fans of Star Trek for a very long time. But there is one notable clip that I found, and if you've seen the thumbnail of this video, that is taken directly from this clip. It is specifically an unused miniature sort of flyby of the Enterprise. And you can see, it says miniature, but the model's like bigger than a human. There's a guy like rotating a spindle underneath it as they're slowly zooming into this model of the Enterprise. The big doings about this is because it is the singular first one I have ever seen that has a different look for the bridge. Specifically, if you watch the clip, it will be attached in the description below. Go watch it from the CBS Home Entertainment, YouTube channel, whatever it is, advertising this. This was a DVD set that came out in like December 2016, and I'd never heard about it. I still have yet to track it down. I really want to get my hands on it. But this clip, an unused flyby or whatever you want to call it of the Enterprise, slowly zooms in. And much akin to many of the shots we see in the Abrams 2009 Star Trek, that whole franchise as it spun off into 3 movies. And, Discovery, all of these elaborate shots from space that arc toward the ship that go right into a window on the bridge. This thing is exactly that. Only it's the 1960s. It has the glowing roof on top of the bridge, but there is a white glowing sort of, rectangular shape that suggests, and the way it is filmed, it suggests to me, and now I don't know for sure, this is only my speculation, I'd have to see confirmation to this effect, but I have heard that Gene Roddenberry, there were a lot of things that he wanted to be able to accomplish, and they just could not. With the budgeting and the restraints of what they could do with special effects back in the 60s and such like that, this stands to reason to me, this clip, that this is something he wanted to be able to do. He wanted to be able to zoom in to a window on the bridge overlooking Captain Pike and number 1, the first officer and science officer Spock. It would have zoomed in, much as a lot of the shots in Discovery and the 2009 Trek movies, Abrams Trek movies, does. So with that, if you look at this clip and you see it, and it's the form and function of it is zooming in to an Enterprise floating there in space, and it's pointedly going to zoom into what looks like it's meant to be a bridge window, which would then effectively, you would, look into the bridge and you would suddenly be, transported through that transparent aluminum or whatever it is, and you'd be on the bridge with the characters. That's what this looks like. But it was in the 60s. It was filmed in the 60s, and it was probably unused because it just, other than the shadow of the camera being visible across the bridge as it gets very up close and tight to that little that glowing rectangle, where they would then mat in a shot of the bridge, as well as the matting process and being able to get that particular angle of the bridge. It probably was not workable on 60s budgets with the limitations they had of special effects. But had they been able to do it, they were going to do it that way, is what this clip is telling me. So for all the people who are having a hot nut, pardon my French, and blasting off and losing their ever-loving crap about windows on the bridge, they're not supposed to be there. It's not supposed to be that way. This clip argues otherwise. This clip suggests to me they were going to try to do that, and if they were able to do that, that's how they would have done it. The Enterprise 1701 from the original series would have had a view screen window. Now again, this is my speculation. It is my reaction to this sole clip. I don't know this for sure, but that is what I think it looks like. And that is precedence enough for me Not that I really had that big of a deal about Windows on the Enterprise. I mean, it's been forever and a day now, going back to 2009, that we've been seeing this, so it's kind of become the norm, so to speak. But it's precedence enough, much akin to a lot of things I pointed out in my video pre-Discovery, talking about, is Star Trek Discovery Phase 2? Stylistically, were things, that they were putting into the design, the form and function of the sets and everything like that for Star Trek Discovery, was this paying homage and taking inspiration from concepts that happened all the way back before the motion picture? One of those things involved an early bridge concept design for the NCC 1701D, the Next Generation Enterprise. And I pointedly said in the video, it looks like a wraparound window. They wanted to be able to do that. Now, that's a clip, or that's a concept design talking about the Next Generation, but this video clip takes us back to the original series era, pre-Pike. I think this was probably, looking at the design of the ship, because the Bussard collectors still have those little pointy things coming out of them. I think this was probably one of the earliest shots, even before the first pilot with, Jeffrey Hunter as Captain Pike, the cage. And that to me is gobsmacking. That to me flips everything I know once again on its ear, because there is the precedence for it. Look at this shot, this trolley shot moving up to the model of the Enterprise. And it pointedly turns and straightens so that the little rectangle, the little glowing rectangle that would be the bridge window view screen, is centered in the screen. And you could just take the next leap, that the point would be to then zoom in and you're in the bridge. You're seeing what's going on in the bridge, from outside, and then you're in the bridge. They were going to try to do that back then already. They just couldn't, is what this clip is telling me. And that's precedence enough for me to be like, oh, okay, this actually is pretty cool then. This is what Gene wanted. This is what he was going to try to do. But he couldn't do it. But now we're doing it in this modern era. Have a look at this clip and see for yourself, enlighten yourself to the fact that this is conceivably something they were trying to pull off already back in the 60s, back in the origins of Star Trek. And it was not viable for whatever reason. And I think you'd be that much better for it if you acknowledge that fact. You don't have to accept it if you don't like it, if it's something that really rubs you the wrong way or anything like that. But at least acknowledge the fact that it looks like they were trying to achieve this back then already. In the origins of this beloved franchise, the original series, the one that started it all, this is one of the things they wanted to try to pull off. And now we're doing it today. And at least to my mind, it makes a kind of sense. And it's workable. I don't mind it. That much more, I actually kind of dig it. Because it is something answering to a long-standing want that Gene and the producers and the creators of the original series had wanted to achieve. It's answering to that want for them. Decades and decades on, but nonetheless. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you think of this particular clip. If you agree with me that it looks like they were trying to pull the same kind of thing off with a bridge window view screen back in the 60s already, and whether it sort of changes your mind or not, as far as a like or dislike for the design, the form and function of the modern equivalent of the USS Enterprise, as seen in the finale of Star Trek Discovery, but the Discovery herself, the Shenzhou, the 2009 Enterprise, and all subsequent ships that have had view screen windows, does this open your mind a little bit more to it or not? Anything goes in the comments below. Our POVs can certainly disagree. It's all about the topic of talk, and for my part, I just think it's really interesting whenever I learn something new about something tried and true, something old hat. And with Star Trek being a long-time passion for me, passed down to me by my dad, and subsequently from me to my sister and such like that. It's just a fantastic franchise, but there's so much of it that we have yet to learn in its foundations and its origins. And this to me is a clip that embodies a sort of smack upside the head for anyone being like, oh, it should never be changed, it should never be touched. Well, what if those changes are harkening back to the original concepts of what they would have done originally if they had had the means? I think there's room enough there to say it's viable. It's allowable for that. It's acceptable. And so, yeah, otherwise, it'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well. Live long and prosper, my friends, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.